and welcome to the Men's Lifeline, where we help men become mentally fit by learning the strategies to overcome the obstacles, overcoming that fear within. So, today we're going to have a special segment called the Men of Action. And on this podcast, we're going to really focus on men who've overcome trials, who overcome struggles, overcome fear that was within, where men felt like a zero, but they didn't realize that they had a hero within themselves all the time. And today, on podcast number 2, we got a special guest. We got Grant. Grant is a fitness expert. He loves the Cubs, so go Cubs. And that's coming from a Lions fan or Tigers fan. Well, one of the Detroit teams, and they're all relatively the same at
Yeah.
this point. So let's hopefully the Tigers had a decent season. But anyways,
Yeah.
Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hey, thanks. First of all, Zach, thank you for having me. We were talking off stage before the podcast started. This is actually the first either like podcast or video series I've done since my time on Twitter. So just happy to be here and excited to get going, man. But yeah, I'll just kind of give a quick rundown. So I'm Grant. I'm 25 years old. I live in Chicago, and I am like basically starting up a one-on-one fitness coaching business. I've been on Twitter for about 4.5 months now, and I'm just kind of trying to, help people improve their lives, like getting in better shape, improving their confidence, kind of just finding their groove in life overall. I kind of specialize in helping like high performers, like busy professionals, and like kind of more demanding type of jobs because my first job out of college was like at a high frequency trading firm, and obviously a lot of long hours, a lot of busy days, and so I feel like I'm pretty I know a thing or two about that kind of niche, and I can help those people really really well. So yeah, for some more just kind of background information, I grew up in Lake Forest, Illinois, which is about an hour north of Chicago. Lived there pretty much my whole life. Went to school, went to college at Caltech out in Pasadena, California. Played baseball out there. Was an awesome experience, even though kind of the results on the field weren't really what I was hoping they would be. It was still a really good experience. And graduated in 2020. Worked at a high frequency trading firm, like I said. That was my first job out of school. Worked there for about a year and a half, 2 years, and now I'm pursuing this fitness business. So yeah.
It's awesome. Always just having that passion for health and exercise and nutrition, huh?
Yeah, man. So basically, like the like time I really like got into it was like during my baseball career was when I really started to take my fitness and my nutrition like really really seriously. Because I tried to pursue professional baseball and
Mhm.
see if I could make it to pro ball. Kind of the results didn't really work out, but like kind of the process of like really pursuing that as hard as I could really forced me to understand a ton more about just like strength training, nutrition, health, just kind of everything in between. And yeah, like as a result of that, I kind of over time built up a pretty solid knowledge base of just kind of general health and fitness topics. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, really.
Awesome. And we're definitely going to include the website since you say you do one on one coaching. We'll include all
Yeah,
that in the description below. So
yes, sir.
make sure you check out Grant. He's a great guy. He produces nothing but the best content when it comes to
Thank you,
health and
man.
nutrition.
Thanks,
And I
brother.
got to say,
You produce awesome content too. I always see you on my timeline, man. Don't yeah. You produce some good stuff too.
hey, especially if you want to improve your deadlift. I mean, I see this guy deadlifting all the time and just like breaking his own PRs
Thanks,
and
brother.
and
Yeah,
so
yeah. The current goal that I'm working on is trying to get to 600 pounds on my deadlift. So
wow,
we're about
600? Dang,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. We're at my current PR is 565, which like I think sort of surprised some people because I'm only about like deadlift is like far and away like my best lift. I'm only about right around 200 pounds now, but I have pretty good like I use my body pretty well on deadlift, I would say, and it allows me to pull some pretty big weights. But I'm trying to get to 600. There's this event that I'm doing through Elevate Life. If you guys have seen Elevate on Twitter, it's like
Mhm.
a pretty cool community of just kind of like-minded guys pursuing like fitness and self-improvement. So
Yeah,
checking
those
out.
guys love the deadlift.
Yeah, but there's a big deadlift competition we're having at the end of October. So I've been training for that, trying to get to 600 pounds by that.
I
So
get to keep us updated in that journey. I would love to hear more about it.
I will, man. I will. Yeah. I mean, it's only a couple weeks away now. What's today? October 6th. It's coming up pretty soon. But yeah, we got a heavy single this Friday, trying to hopefully get somewhere in the mid fives, and hopefully that should be like not like crazy hard. And then
Mhm.
yeah, going for six at the end of the month. So yeah, it's an exciting time for sure, brother. It's an exciting time.
Hey, that's awesome. Love to hear it. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about like a major obstacle or something that you had
Yeah,
to like overcome? I mean, it could be something now, it could be what maybe led you to fitness. Like, I
yeah,
just want to know, like, what's like a major
love to.
trial that you really had to work through?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I love kind of sharing my journey and talking about this kind of stuff. So for me, I would say kind of the biggest like struggle or the biggest like trial that I overcame was really you could say just my fitness journey itself. So I'll take you back kind of to the beginning of the timeline. So kind of the beginning was like beginning of like high school and kind of like throughout high school, right? So growing up, like or I guess like by the time I got to high school, like I had kind of developed some like not so amazing like kind of habits like especially nutrition habits. So I was
Mm,
consistently like for breakfast I would have like the classic like healthy like in air quotes breakfast cereals
yeah.
that are actually full of like sugars, seed oils, and a bunch of other chemicals and crap basically. I'd have that. I'd have like a donut on the side or like some other
Oh,
like sugary pastry on the side. For lunch, I'd have like candy bars all the time, potato chips,
got some sweet tooth over there, huh?
yeah, dude. No, I mean it's honestly gone away over the years once I started
That's
eating
good.
healthy. It's gone away over the years and started eating healthier. But at the time, I definitely did, and I was like, I had like soda all the time and like
Mm,
pizza. Like well, pizza's not really sweet, but ice cream, like stuff like that all the time. I definitely did have a sweet tooth, but kind of as a result of that, as a result of some of those habits, I kind of my body composition when I was in like high school, especially like later in high school, was not really where I wanted it to be. I kind of had more of like the dad bod physique, as you as people might say.
mhm,
And I think like as a result of that, like I didn't really realize at the time, but like like kind of my mental health suffered too as a result of my
mm,
physical health not really being where it was. Like I didn't have like a ton of confidence in myself in certain situations, like socially I wasn't really I kind of struggled in social situations. I had like some social anxiety and it wasn't really like a super easy like time to go through like mentally and everything. Didn't have like super high self-esteem and like
mm,
had a lot of like kind of negative self-beliefs about myself, and it kind of just held me back from being who I wanted to be and who I knew that I could become. And it was tough at the time. I would say that lasted like mainly kind of through high school. I was always like an athlete, so I played like baseball and football primarily in
mhm,
high school. But like, and I think like football I wasn't great, but baseball I kind of got away with the fact that I had like a pretty naturally good arm. I was a pitcher, a right-handed pitcher, and by like the end of my senior year, actually, so like going into I think like fall of my senior year or so is when I got recruited to play college baseball at Caltech. So despite like I said, like not really being in the shape I wanted to be in, like I kind of just had the arm strength was there, and yeah, like the coach liked me and everything. I liked the coach a lot, and ended up just going out there and playing and committing to play on that team. So, but like I'd say like going into like freshman year of college and especially like end of freshman year was when my like fitness journey I would say really took off. So like
mm.
I came into Caltech like already touching 90 miles an hour off the mound.
Oh,
Um,
90? Wow.
yeah. So that was what I was saying. I was a pretty naturally, I
Yeah.
was always like a naturally hard thrower. Like
I think you
even
sold
like my
short
junior
a little
senior
bit saying because 90 is pretty fast. Because what do the pros do? Like, I know anywhere I mean, on average, I would say, like, 95, but
Yeah, I think MLB average, I'm sure, is probably close to like 95 now. It used to be like only probably like when I was first throwing 90, the MLB average is probably like 91 or 92, but now it's probably a little bit higher because of just all the new like kind of training methodologies, which I'll talk about in a second. But
alright, cool.
um, yeah, man. But no baseball. So yeah, I come in throwing 90, but I had always had a good arm. Like even like little league, like 12, like 13, 14 U, I was probably already throwing like high 70s, touching like 80 at that point. And I had always just had a naturally like a pretty good arm. And yeah, so I come in freshman year, touching 90 on the mound. I kind of realized I was like, okay, like if I like dial this in a bit, if I get my command better, and if I
Yeah.
throw a little bit harder and kind of improve my body a bit more, I think like pro baseball is actually like a pretty realistic thing to start thinking about here because like not many like college freshmen. I mean like maybe in some D1 programs, but there's
Mhm.
really not that many college freshmen out there. Like Caltech was D3
Oh,
for
I
that.
was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, we were D3, but
Okay.
our conference was actually really good. So like the D3 teams that we played, like we'd play Chapman and we play like Cal Lutheran, who like both
Mhm.
won the national championship one of the years we were there, and they both had like Chapman. I remember had a guy sitting like 95 or something, like one game, and he was just like there were like 20 scouts behind him with radar guns, all just like checking him out. And we're like, holy shit, like who the fuck is this kid? But no, man. What was I going to say though? Yeah, but anyway. So I came in through a 90. I was like, okay, like pro ball, like this is like a pretty realistic thing. So I was like, all right,
Mhm.
I'm going to learn as much as I can about training, nutrition, health, etc. Like I was saying earlier, and I'm going to just use this to try and build the best pitcher that I can be, right? Be the best
Right.
athlete that I can be, and build the best, yeah, just build the best body that I can, right? So freshman year to sophomore year, I really started doing that. This is kind of the first time that I understood, like even something as basic as like calorie surplus, calorie deficit. I didn't even
Mhm.
really understand it up until that point. Like I had probably heard of it, and it's not like a crazy complicated concept at all. But I
Right.
just never really applied it until that summer. And then that summer I applied it, and all of a sudden I lose like 25 pounds of fat like that summer. I went from like I was like 205. I cut all the way
Right.
down to like 180. Um,
Wow.
Going into that sophomore year. Yeah, so I was like,
That's incredible.
I got,
25 pounds, though.
I
That's
honestly
that's
felt like
incredible.
really skinny by the end of it. I was like, oh, holy crap, I'm like skin and bones right now. But I kept up my strength. So my strength like wasn't. I had like lifted weights and I played football in high school, but I
Mhm.
was never like a freak in the weight room or anything. So like the
Sure.
strength that I had, I maintained pretty well. Um, at that point, and I came back sophomore year, and then that was the first time like I would like look in the mirror and I was like, holy crap, I actually feel like, pretty confident about like what I see in the mirror. I feel pretty confident about who I am. And like, this is pretty sweet. I don't know, like, you know, and like, kind of the crazy thing was like all of a sudden, I didn't even really put two and two together at the time. But like all of a sudden I was starting to really build, just confidence, like especially like
Mm.
social confidence, like like going to parties, meeting new people, like friends, et cetera, et cetera. And it just became a lot easier. So, what was I going to say? I credit some of that to like the fact that like one of my best friend from Caltech was like 4 year roommates with me. It was like definitely helped bring me out of my shell a little bit
Oh,
and
that's
like
awesome.
kind of make me more social. Yeah, I had like honestly, like the thing with Caltech, man, is it was a really small school. It was like 1,000
Mhm.
people. So I was like I formed a really good group of friends. And Yeah, that was just like honestly like super critical for like I think building confidence too. But so was the kind of physical body transformation, right? So anyway, so sophomore year comes and goes. Baseballs that like the numbers were a bit better that year. I had some injuries. I had like kind of had like ongoing elbow
Oh.
issues that kind of like hurt that season a little bit. I was off to like a really good start. Like I had three or four like pretty good starts at the beginning of the year, and then I got hurt one game and then like kind of couldn't really put the pieces back together after that. But I think like the potential was always there. I wasn't really throwing any harder. I think because I didn't really put on any muscle mass, but I
Mhm.
definitely felt like my body was moving better, and I felt like I was able to maintain my velocity a bit better, which was definitely exciting. And then I'd say like going into junior year, that was when I first really started to understand like muscle growth, and like putting on
Mhm.
muscle mass, building strength, and getting stronger. And so like that summer, I went from like 180 to like 190, 195. I think by the season
Mhm.
I was kind of drifting somewhere in there. and all my lifts went up. I don't remember exactly where they were at. It was probably like probably the first time I pulled like 405 on the straight bar was that year.
Oh, nice.
Probably. Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you. I think maybe the first time I squatted 3 plates. I don't know. Maybe bench press. I wasn't
Three
doing
plates,
barbell bench.
35, I'm assuming, or three plates.
What was that? Sorry.
I said, what was the rundown of the plates on the squat?
Oh yeah, I think 315, 3 plates, like around there. It was definitely like
Yeah.
around like 295 ish at least.
Okay, nice. That's good.
So I was getting up there. Yeah, squat's always been like a weak point, still is for me. Like my deadlift has always been like way, way, way better. But
Mhm.
we're getting there. We're working on improving it. But what was I going to say? Yeah, no. So squats, I was doing squats. Benching, we never really did. Baseball, there's this weird like stigma about like barbell bench press, which I personally don't agree with.
Okay.
They're like, oh, barbell bench press is bad for pitchers. You're putting your shoulder in like a bad position, like whatever. So we always did like dumbbell bench, but I was starting to throw around like 85s, 90s for reps. So definitely was getting stronger, like upper body too. And like I think the crazy thing about it was like velocity wise, like in games, I never really topped above 91 that I had recorded. Like now, it was D3, so the tricky thing was like we don't have radar guns at all our games, but I kind of have to go with like the hardest I actually saw in game, which was
Wow.
91. But like in training a couple times, like in training one time I hit 91 on flat ground, which is like supposed to translate to like a couple miles an hour harder off the mound because you don't have
Okay.
a slope to go down.
Mm.
But the velocity was coming along. The strength was definitely there. I was definitely maintaining velocity better. Um, Obviously, like again, like the in-game results weren't really there. I went through like the yips junior year, which is actually kind of sucked to deal with. I don't know if you know what the yips are, but it's like
No, I don't. What
basically
is
just
that?
like long story short, it's like you can't really throw strike. uh,
Mostly you're throwing
yeah,
like just like all kind of off like
yeah,
this way and that way and
yeah, it was kind of like a mental block,
oh,
if anything. If
sure.
baseball players, pitchers out there probably can relate to this, who've had it or who understand what I'm talking about. But I had the yips like pretty bad junior year. I think I put up like a 20 ERA. For those of you who know baseball, that's not very good. Uh, was walking like several batters an inning on average, so it was pretty bad.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
but uh,
Not
but
too good. Not
yeah,
a baseball pro, but I
yeah, I
know
know
a
you
little
can
bit.
probably figure out that that's not very good. But I also it's crazy because like there were also some games where I was just absolutely lights out, and like it would be like I'd come in the bottom of like the sixth in a game that we're down like 15, and I'd go and
Mhm.
strike out the side and be just like absolutely unhittable.
Oh, geez.
So like the talent was there,
Right.
but like the kind of in-game results weren't always what I wanted. But regardless, anyway, so I'll just kind of fast forward one more time. So like junior year comes
Sure.
and goes. Senior year season gets cut pretty short because of COVID. But by
Oh,
that
COVID
time,
didn't
I'm like,
yeah.
yeah. So that actually really sucked. I remember like the first like when we first heard about it, we were all like pretty bummed out. I remember like it just sucked. It felt like it was just kind of ripped away from us because it was.
No, I
So
mean, yeah, it was I mean, a lot of people suffer that. A lot
yeah,
of people, teams and people depending on scholarships and everything. It was
yeah,
horrible.
yeah. So technically, I do have one more year of eligibility
I
left.
was just gonna ask you that because I hear about this like, all the time that, like, a lot of
if
players
I
didn't get to play during
if
COVID,
I
that
wanted
got, like,
to
an extra.
go, yeah, if I wanted to go get a master's or something somewhere, technically I do have one more year left, but I don't have any plans to use that anytime soon.
Okay.
But what was I gonna say? Fuck about baseball. No, man, but like senior year, and then like senior year, by that point, I was like, I'm starting to feel like, okay, yeah, like I'm like legitimately, especially in like certain lifts, I'm like legitimately pretty strong at this point. Deadlifted 500 for the first time, I think, like that spring. I think it was after baseball was over, but I
Mhm.
remember pulling 500. There's a video on my Twitter somewhere of me doing it for the first time, and then like screaming, "Let's fucking go!" Like being like getting like really hyped up for it. But
Well, hey,
uh,
if you find it, shoot it to me and, we can, include it.
I will. I'll find it for you. I think it's actually probably in my pinned thread. So I'll go through and I definitely have it. So I can find it for you.
Alright.
What was I gonna say? But yeah, man. But dude, by that time, like by senior year, so this is kind of how it relates to like what I try to do now with
Mhm.
my coaching, right? By that time, I was like way more confident. Like way more comfortable socially. Would go to like all the parties at Caltech. Was like somebody that like I think a lot of the younger kids on the team looked up to. And you know, I really like look back. It was the first time when I like really kind of it's like you're climbing the mountain, then you look down and you're like, oh holy crap, I'm actually like pretty high up from where I started. So that was the first time when I really was like, okay, yeah, like wow, this is I'm like a whole new I'm on like a whole new level right now, and I've really like changed my life for the better in a lot of ways. So um, it was really exciting. That time was really really exciting for me. But yeah, man. So that's pretty much the journey. That's pretty much why I started. Why I got into coaching was so that I could help people, you know, kind of overcome the same kinds of things like
Mm.
confidence, getting stronger, losing weight, building muscle, and just kind of building a better life for themselves overall, developing as a person. So
Yeah, see, man, you had to hear it all within, just had to pull it out there. And
yeah,
you hear
yeah,
that
exactly.
story of people who just suffered, with like in high school, developing that dad bod because of all
Yeah,
that food that just we're so
yeah,
ingrained here.
yeah,
Morning, you're gonna have a bowl of cereal that sugars up the wazoo, and then have a donut on the side, and then go to school and eat the school cafeteria food that's just full of junk and
yeah.
carbs and
It's
makes you all
scary.
sluggish.
It's scary. It's scary how like mainstream nutrition, like how all this stuff is just so prevalent and so like
Yeah,
unavoidable for so many people. It's honestly really sad because I think it's at the end of the day, it's just like you know where the money goes and like these big
right.
corporations that produce all this like food. Like they're just trying to line their pocketbooks at the end of the day. So it's pretty sad that like oftentimes like people like you know younger version of grants and like all millions and millions of others have kind of suffered from that. But yeah, it's a tough thing.
Hey, that's why it's so important to have people on you on this show, so that way we can highlight you
Thanks, brother.
and to show your journey. That one of the most important things, especially as it relates to mental health. And for
Yeah.
those who don't know, I am a clinical therapist in mental health by trade.
Yep.
And the biggest thing that people love to hear is that they're not alone, that they're not alone in this struggle, is that there's other people going through this pain, whether it's having
100%.
a dad bod and just all this sugar foods, and they don't know really what to do, whether they can't financially afford it, or they just don't know the nutrition facts because it's not really taught. It's like, here's a label, this has this amount of sugar. But
Yeah.
as people, I mean, I remember being in health class and seeing how like a can of Coke was like an ungodly amount of sugar.
Yeah.
And it was so gross, but what did I do? Still
Yeah.
drink the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and that's it too. And I think it's just like I think a lot of times it's just that people. I think some things like Coke or like donuts or whatever. It's like people know that they're bad for them, but they don't really realize fully like why they're bad for them. And I think if more people realize why, then they
100%
would be
agree.
like much more likely to avoid them. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my take on it. But
No, I mean, I think it's important to understand the why. It's like, exercise is good for you, but for
yep,
me, a lot of times it comes from a skill level and a strategy of, well, how do I eat healthy?
yeah,
How do I exercise? How do I work out? So, like, I knew, so my brother's a chiropractor, and he was telling me about someone who was doing like CrossFit or cross training, one of those, and did some type of exercise and they injured themselves
yeah,
because they weren't a natural athlete. They
yeah.
was the first time training, so it's so important to know what you're doing and to how
Oh
to do it,
yeah,
so that way you avoid injuries. And as we know, when you're working out, I mean, you get to a point where you can lift heavy.
yeah,
I think it's exciting because it's a little bit
yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. There's always danger, and you gotta use good technique for sure if you're gonna be pulling heavy weights and moving heavy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's tough, and at the end of the day, you always do kind of still run the risk regardless, even if like
Oh,
even if you have
absolutely.
crystal like crystal clear, perfect technique on everything, you're still gonna run the risk, and you still could get hurt. So
Yeah, I
it's kind
remember
of just
one time.
but
Yeah.
at the end of
Oh,
the
great.
day too, yeah, the other thing is too if you don't work out, you don't lift heavy, then you're running the risk of like you know in your everyday life you could get hurt if your muscles just aren't strong enough to support
So true.
like the rest of your body. So it's a
Yeah, I
double
was just gonna say, I remember doing an incline bench one time. It's like one of those few times where you get stuck. So it's like you're stuck like right here,
I know what
and
you
you literally just like can't move it up anymore. And you're like, okay, either
mean.
I'm gonna have to set this down,
Yeah,
or I'm gonna have to just really muster and push it up.
Yeah, exactly. So
No, it can get
it's
ter
yeah, good stuff. But,
So with your coaching, is it in
yeah,
person? I know I figured since I know you're on Twitter, is it also I know you probably do online coaching, but
yeah,
do
yeah,
you, like, do a mixture of the 2?
yeah, 100%, man. So, no, it's primarily online. I think if I had a client who happened to live like super close, like
Mhm.
literally in like the part of Chicago that I live in, then I would do then I'd consider doing in person coaching. But
Mhm.
no, it's mainly the main goal is to get like online clients. Um, it's so kind of the way the program works is it's like you have like your strength stuff. So like I use this app called Trainerize to build people programs, and just I'll have like an intro call with them. I'll talk about like what their goals are, what they want to accomplish, whether they're trying to lose weight, build muscle, something in between, and build them out a strength program for that, and then it also comes with like I think the biggest thing that I provide is like accountability, right? So
Mm.
that's like
Okay.
texting clients to check in with them. That's having a Google sheet that says, okay, and my clients all know this if they're any of them are out there watching. It's just all these different little cells, and like every day, it's like you just check the box. Like, did I get enough hours of sleep? Did I eat a whole food breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Did I get enough grams of protein? Did I
Mhm.
do my exercise for the day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, yeah, those are the big things.
I love it. I love that idea,
Yeah,
that checkbox system. That's
yeah,
and
yeah,
it does amazing work. I use that actually in my practice too, like,
yeah.
a lot, and it's
It
incredible how
works.
much
It works. I think that plus like checking in on people. I think
yeah.
like some clients are very self sufficient and they're just like, okay, like if you just give them the program, they'll just be they'll just kind of go off and they'll always fill out the stuff. Some you have to check in on a bit more often, but
Sure.
that honestly that's better for me as a coach because that's when you actually get to do a little bit more coaching. Is like when you have a client who is like, oh hey, like I missed this day, or it's like, hey, I'm going out of town this weekend, like what can we do? Like, how can we work around this? Like that type of thing. Those are kind of like fun situations to deal with as a coach. So
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things because, when you're gonna go out to, like, on a vacation or, like, a small little trip, I mean, it's so easy to
yeah,
stop at a restaurant and look at some foods and try and make a healthy choice. It's not
yeah,
easy.
absolutely, 100%, dude.
So so what is your coaching program called? Like, what's it does it have a title? Like
It's just called Stir Fit. I don't know if it really I don't know if I've really given it a title yet. Maybe I should give it a title. I don't know. Just Snurfit coaching program. I actually am. There's one other thing I didn't really mention about the program. I am building out this kind of like video sequence of just like content, like informational materials that I'm calling Snurfit University. So the
oh,
goal of that is that
okay.
you watch the videos, and then you like are learning things as we go through the coaching. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to write you a program and I'm going to hold you accountable. It's I'm going to build you a program. I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm also going to give you tools so that over time, you're going to actually build up a knowledge base so that eventually you won't need me anymore, and you can just go and run this program through for yourself and do it that way. So that's pretty cool. But that's still like an active work in progress at the moment.
But that's so important too because that way
Yeah,
it's when you sit down with someone and talk about the strategies and the different exercises and the
yeah,
movements, it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to see it. And most people are visual learners, so that if they can see something in some type of movement,
yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. I think most people are visual learners, and it's like, if I'm explaining something like I recorded one this week, if I'm explaining something like, okay, this is like what maintenance calories are, and then this is like how many calories you need to like go into a surplus or a deficit, and then this is how much like actual weight loss it equates to every week. Like that is really
mhm,
well visualized as like just a linear relationship, right? So like every 500 calories into like surplus would be like about a pound a week of weight gain. 500 into deficit would be about a pound a week of weight loss. So yeah, but like you can and like 1,000 would be 2 pounds, et cetera, et
mhm.
cetera. So yeah, so being able to like visualize things like that, I think is like really key for people. Because
Oh,
it's one thing for me to hop on a call and like and try to just ad hoc explain that to people. It's another thing for me to just have an actual like hard piece of content, piece of like valuable information that I can give to them. that explains it. So
Awesome. And one of the last things I really want to ask you about, because I
yeah,
see this like all the time on Twitter, like seriously, like at least a
sure,
couple of times a day, I
sure.
see this like vendetta against seed oils.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so I personally think that they're like pretty bad seed
Could you
oils.
explain kind of what a seed oil kind of is? Is it just like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you want me to just explain like why they're bad or what it is?
yeah, just a little bit of a little bit of
Yeah,
both. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure, for sure. So seed oils, it's actually funny that this is like now becoming a pretty big topic because I had heard about seed oils, or at the time I had referred to it called vegetable oils, which is the same kind of a thing,
Oh, is it?
like 3 or 4 years ago. So
Okay.
a vegetable oil is basically like it's basically an oil that like they have to take the plant and like heat it up like to like a really high temperature in order to extract the oil. And then they heat it up really hot, and then they go through like a ton of weird like chemical processes. And
Hmm.
essentially, what it does is it makes the resulting molecule very unstable, like very prone to oxidation. So let me like we can contrast this to a natural oil like olive oil, peanut oil, or even something like butter. These oils are going to be much more chemically stable and much more resistant to oxidation. So why is oxidation good or bad? When oxidation happens, that's basically when like the molecule itself is altered and there's like a chemical reaction that goes on there.
Hmm.
The issue with that is that those chemical reactions can actually do damage to your surrounding cell tissues in your body.
Oh.
So if you're consuming a lot of seed oils, it's believed, and this is based on like a book that I read called that I actually highly recommend that most people check out if they're really interested into diving into the nutrition space pretty heavily. It's called Deep Nutrition. Cate Shanahan is the author, Dr. Cate Shanahan. But
Okay.
the book is all about like one of the main topics in the book is how this the chemical like reaction of how this actually works. So it's pretty interesting. I do think that they're pretty bad. I tend to avoid them for the most part. I would say, like you've probably seen like the 80-20 rule on Twitter,
Yep. Yep.
where it's like if you
Absolutely.
try to get 80% whole foods, 20% can be what you want.
Hmm.
Um, I probably like am somewhere between. I'd say probably close to like 9 to 10,
Sure.
but I do understand like the principle. Like okay, like most of the time you eat your whole foods, so that a certain percentage of the time you can still enjoy your ice cream or your Cheerios or your or not Cheerios, your Cheetos or whatever it is you want. I guess Cheerios fall into this category too. But
I was gonna say that they're relatively the
yeah,
same.
yeah,
At that
yeah,
point.
exactly. But it's funny. But Cheerios are that's one of those that are marketed as like super heart healthy in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Hey, it lowers your cholesterol
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
as long as you keep it apart to a bowl.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway. But what was I talking about? But yeah, the seed oil stuff. I think it is pretty bad.
Right.
I think like if you eat at a restaurant and the restaurant cooks in seed oils, I would consider that as part of the 10 as opposed to part of the 90. Like Chipotle, for example, that's a classic one that I think a lot of people think is healthy, but a lot of that
Mhm.
stuff is cooked in processed seed oils, etc. And so I would actually lump that into the unhealthy category personally. Although I would say that that's better than something like just going to like McDonald's and ordering a milkshake. Uh,
Yeah, and I
some,
do see when a lot of people would get Chipotle, they would get pretty much it without, like, the bun and, the burrito.
Yeah, yeah, but the issue, the thing is, like all of the meats
That's
are still cooked in these oils.
okay. That's
Uh,
good to know, I didn't know that. I mean,
yeah,
I knew
restaurants,
I mean, I know it's, like, lunch meat, so you kinda figure it's kinda like what have you,
yeah,
but I didn't
dude,
know that they were cooked in.
it's a lot more widespread than people think. I think a lot of restaurants use and reuse the stuff. And it isn't like if you're otherwise really healthy and you're working out all the time and you're primarily cooking a lot of your own meals, like, are you gonna get sick if you go to a restaurant a couple like once or twice a week and eat there? Like probably not. But it is just like something to keep in mind. Like you can still eat there, you can still go enjoy your restaurants, but just don't necessarily expect that it's this like pinnacle of health that it's kind of projecting that it's going to be. Um, so that's just my 2 cents on it. But
No, I think it's important to know, like, I just kept seeing it, I just needed to take time myself to, like, really look into, like, what is a seed oil. I just didn't have time, so that's why I really wanted to focus
Yeah,
on you. I see that all
yeah,
over. Those are
yeah,
the 2 things I see all over Twitter is
yeah,
basically the seed oils and the 80-20 rule.
yeah.
Because hey,
I should do a thread on it
you still gotta enjoy some of it, right?
Yeah, I should probably do a thread on it sometime because I do know like a bit about how it works. Like the chemical stuff. Like I said, the
Mhm.
history of it is also like super interesting. Apparently, it was like like the way they like discovered it, it was like a byproduct of like soap manufacturing, and then
Oh my
somebody
gosh.
had an idea. No, dead serious. Like it was
Oh my
literally like soap that they didn't like want, and
yeah.
then somebody had the idea like, hey, let's turn this into like food and like sell it to like poor people basically, and they did that, and like it became like that was like Crisco, I think, was the first.
Okay.
Like margarine like fake butter spreads were the first one, and then um there's also, I think there's like some history with like payouts to the American Heart Association to like promote this kind of shit, so it's a little sketchy. I Yeah, the history is not great
Okay.
on it, but
Well, hey, I'm gonna have to check out your book, the book that you
yeah,
recommended. So
Deep Nutrition is a really good resource on it. I think that it goes into a ton of detail. So
yeah, yeah, because that's one thing like it's so important to do is, and I do this a lot when I do my teaching with my clients is that we talk about yes mental health, but also I like to touch about physical health too because they're
exactly.
linked and it's
Super
so
important. Yeah,
important.
it's super related. Yeah, I think people don't realize that. It's very
Especially since you were mentioning the kind of experiencing some performance, whether it be an anxiety or mental block, you know, on the pitcher mount.
yeah.
So just kind of wrapping up things a little bit, Grant, what is like one major piece of advice that you want to leave with the audience? Like, what is something like that's so important that you want to leave that kind of impression on them?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Besides follow you and learn how to deadlift close to 600 pounds and all
Yeah,
that good stuff.
I, yeah. I would say a lot. Maybe there are some people out there that follow me for the deadlift, but what I would say is like kind of the biggest thing is like adopting like a growth mindset is, I guess, at the end of the day
Mm,
how I would describe
there we
it, right?
go.
Your current situation is never like your final situation, right? You're always capable of more than you know and more than you think, and you can always improve your life. You can always make a big change, take a massive action, and really, really, really change the trajectory of your life like pretty dramatically. And I feel like I definitely did that, like socially, growing up, especially like with the like kind of overcoming like some of those anxiety and
Mhm.
getting better in those situations. I definitely did that with my physical health. Like I never like high school version of me like probably wouldn't have even expected that I'd ever be able to deadlift like 405. So
Well, hey, we made your past self happy and
yeah,
proud.
yeah, very definitely. Past Grant was probably like, if you could have looked in the future 10 years and been like, holy crap, like what do we, how do we do this? Like, but like I guess just like always having that growth mindset and always being improved, always be improving, and always being trying to better yourself in some way, shape,
Mhm.
or form. Whether it's through fitness, through your mental health, through some other avenue. There's always something you can do to improve. And even now, like it's like just because like my fitness has come a long way doesn't mean I'm stopping anytime soon. I still have more goals, more things that I want to accomplish,
Of
more
course, because
stuff.
once you hit 600, you want to get like 605, like 610.
Well, no, what I actually want to
Yeah.
do after I deadlift 600 is I want
Yeah.
to I'm potentially want to get back into baseball training, just for
Okay.
the sake of I think I can get to 95.
Mhm.
I want to really train hard for it and see if I can do it. Because like I'm stronger now than I've ever been. I haven't really thrown in like since college, and I had like senior year, like our last game of senior year, I had like an injury to my like back of my elbow, where
Yeah.
I basically kind of like popped it and it didn't feel really good. I think like I had this past May, I had some doctors look at it, and I ended up doing this thing called PRP, which is plasma rich platelets. It's this like injection where they draw
Oh.
blood from one arm and then they inject it into your other arm. It's like they put it in the centrifuge, isolate out the platelets, which are supposed to like heal your
Mhm.
tissues, and then they inject it into your arm. So I did that in May, I think, and so
Okay.
hopefully by now it's like in a state where it should, fingers crossed, be healed, and be able to support some hard throws on it. But we'll see. I kind of want to just get into it and see what happens. So Um,
Well, hey, you're gonna have to keep us all in touch on that one.
I will,
You got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good fitness stuff coming between,
thanks, man.
getting ready for that competition, and then once you hit that 600, you're gonna hit it, man. I believe in you, man. You're gonna hit
Thank
it.
you, man.
You work
Yeah, I
hard.
think
I
so.
see you out there working and grinding it out.
Yeah,
And then, hey, we'd love to see you how you throw that ball.
thanks,
And
bro. Zach, I
just want to
appreciate it.
thank you again for coming on the show. And
Absolutely.
remember, Grant is the definition of a man of action. He takes action and he doesn't stop, and he always gets better, especially that growth mindset.
Thank you, Zach.
So you guys have a blessed day, and I'll check you guys in the next video.